Okay, so we're all set and we can start broadcasting in 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right, we're on the air.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Judy Wolf, and I want to say welcome to everybody from the community collaborations who are working with NYSPEP to enhance parenting education across the state. Your work is really vital and important because in the community is where things really happen for parents. I am a retired parenting educator and program leader from Cornell Cooperative Extension in Tioga County, New York. I'm on the NYSPEP steering committee and chair the credential work group. I'm also a member of the National Parent Education Network, and there, I'm a past member of the National Council, but there I work with the Professional Preparation and Recognition Committee. So I'm investing my retirement years in quality training and recognition for parenting educators. This morning, what we want to do is to talk about the NYSPEP Parenting Educator Credential. We hope to clarify for you exactly what it is and what it isn't, and to explain the different levels of certification so you can think about what level might be the best for you. We'll walk through the process step by step for applying for the credential. And think about how you can use it to enhance your career path. For supervisors who are on this webinar, we'll spell out why you should also apply and be looking to hire staff who are credentialed or helping your current staff obtain the credential. It'll also help those who are interested in applying to prepare for our upcoming application deadlines. The next ones coming up are October 31st and January 31st. Also with me today, I have Jackie Spencer and Jenny Knox. So Jackie, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So I work in Cornell Cooperative Extension in Tioga County, New York. I oversee our family development programming. We have a small team of 4 parenting educators working with families through our Family Resource Center program and a variety of parenting education. I've been working with the NYSPEP credentialing committee for quite a few years now, helping to review credential applications, helping with the updating of the application itself, and continuing to move forward our efforts to provide this level of professional recognition for folks working in parenting education.
Jenny? And tell us who you are and what brings you to this table.
Sure. I'm Jenny Knox, and I'm the Director of Outreach and Education for PRC of the Valleys, and we cover Steuben and Livingston counties, providing, among other things, parenting education classes and other resources to support parenting education to families. I am also the Credential Coordinator for the New York State Parent Education Partnership, and I've been doing that since 2014. And Jackie and I have both been involved with it much longer than that. Almost from the start, I would say. We came in pretty early on this process, so it's been a pleasure to be a part of this and watch it evolve and see what it does for the people who go through this process. It really is a great tool for professional and personal development. So I'm here today to talk to you about process, and I'm going to have the really big slide with all kinds of stuff on it that looks really daunting. It's not.
Thanks, Jenny. Your voice is coming across a little bit quiet, and so you might want to think about projecting, unless it's my computer, but you sounded quieter than Jackie did. So what is the NYSPEP Parenting Educator Credential? When NYSPEP was founded in 2009, one of the first goals that was identified by the conveners was to professionalize the field of parenting ed, and creating a certification that clearly establishes a person's qualifications to work in the field was a priority. And we began working on the credential at that time. The framework, the professional recognition framework, identifies skills, knowledge, attitudes, and dispositions that are required for effective practice in parenting education. By skills, we mean abilities. For example, the ability to facilitate a group would be a skill. And knowledge, we're talking about understanding facts and information and research on the relevant topics. For example, knowing about the protective factors and the importance of the protective factors in supporting the health and well-being of children and families and communities. By attitudes, we mean one's beliefs about people, things, events, places, roles that can be reflected in your emotions and behaviors. For example, believing that when you're working with a family with parents and children, that talking about the strengths of the individuals in the group is the starting place for supporting and offering education to that family. Dispositions refers to prevailing tendencies or habits of mind encompassing values, or commitments, and professional ethics. And so dispositions, one example might be being able to keep the confidentiality for a client, even in just casual conversation in the community, or some of those places where it's easy to forget that. So we call these skills, knowledge, attitudes, and dispositions competencies. And the competencies, or the credential establishes and recognizes those competencies. So this is the broad and deep list that we believe qualified parenting educators need to seek to build in their professional repertoire. It's a system for providing evidence of one's abilities and expertise. So in addition to you looking at it and seeing a list of, oh wow, that's all the stuff I need to know, or oh wow, that's a lot of stuff that I do know and skills that I do have. The credential application requires you to identify your education and training and experience in each competency by documenting that, and then you write a short statement to show how you understand that and apply that competency in your everyday work. So it's the application is a system for you to provide evidence of your abilities and your expertise. And it's an objective symbol of confidence in the professional's abilities for employers and colleagues and the public to see. So the applications are reviewed by a panel of your peers who are credentialed parenting educators. And so once your portfolio has been reviewed and approved for the credential, and you receive that, it provides a way for parents and caregivers to identify who they want to receive parenting education from, and for organizations and funders to ensure quality in their staffing and identify who are the people they want to hire so that they know they have these competencies. So we manage all of this, identifying those competencies, and you documenting your competencies through a portfolio application system that Jenny will talk about in a few minutes. What it is not a training. So if your question is, where can I get the training for, where can I get the training to get the credential? That's something that you seek out on your own. You build your skills and your professional knowledge over the years. It's not a training you sign up for and get the credential at the end. It is not a license. So while there are a number of places that prefer the credential for an employee or might even require it, it's not a licensed profession governed by state regulations. Now, in the state of Minnesota, there is a license for parenting education for those working with families of preschoolers within school districts. So there are places where there is a parenting education license. That's not true of the NYSPEP credential. And it's not a test. Like the National Council on Family Relations, to qualify for the Certified Family Life Educator, one of the ways you can get that is by sitting for a test. You have to have a certain level of academic achievement, and then you can sit for a test. There's not a test for the credential. The work is you identifying in a portfolio what your skills, your competencies are, and working with a review team to guarantee that, and then you're awarded the credential. So Jackie, you want to talk with us about who ought to be looking at this?
Sure. So in a broad sense, anyone who touches the lives of those who touch the lives of children. More specifically, parents and caregivers are the focus. And we use those terms broadly. So biological parents, kinship, foster, you name it. Anyone who is providing primary care to children is a parent or caregiver in our definition. So in the community, there's all kinds of ways that parenting education is not entitles that people hold. Folks work for community-based organizations. Sometimes they're working for clinical or therapeutic settings. They might be working for schools or hospitals or clinics. So narrowing it down to what is the role? The role is education and support for parents and caregivers. Yes.
Jackie, when your head turns to your right, we seem to hear you clearly, and then your microphone's breaking up at other times. So I don't know what's different, but it's difficult to hear you when it's breaking up. Is that the same for you, Jenny? Are you hearing her breaking up? Yes. It was really good to start with, so just maybe turn it back on and You're muted now.
Okay, I was going through a microphone
Yeah.
reset.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Thank you. So parenting educators come from all different fields, and that's a strength of the field of parenting education, that there's this multidisciplinary focus and various routes to supporting families. And the way the credential is designed, it's comprehensive, and we have levels of credentialing for specific roles that Jenny will talk about a little bit more. Next slide. Mm-hmm.
You want to go farther than that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Next slide. Oh, wait. Okay, good. Got it. Why should I? Go back. Sorry, the mic.
Who
threw
should
my
have it?
whole
Why should I?
focus.
Okay. Why should I?
Okay. So the credential is really this opportunity to be certain that you have the knowledge, the skills, the attributes, the dispositions to do this work, and then to demonstrate that to others. So it's not just that you know how to do what you do, but you can talk about what you do and how you do it. So this gives the people that you serve that confidence in your abilities, and also will potentially afford you more opportunities to serve in the field, be eligible for promotions or raises, various positions. To me, it's about the respect for the parents and caregivers who come to us for support. I truly believe that when a parent or caregiver is seeking information and support about their parenting, that they deserve to be receiving that support from qualified individuals. And it's also about support for the workforce, respect for the workforce. Providing parenting education is not an easy thing. There's a lot that comes into it, and the workers that are providing that education do deserve that the training and support necessarily to do the job well. So one of the benefits that I've seen personally in my work was around a situation where a parent had been referred to me through the child protection system to take one of my courses. Now I'm working with their lawyer. Their lawyer was doing a job advocating for them, and they asked the hard question: Who is this person, and how are they qualified to teach this parent? And I was able to provide the documentation that I have a credential in parenting education, so they can trust that the education that they're receiving from me is of value to the family. So we can.
Oops, I'm sorry. So all of you out there watching know that we're doing this from our desks at home, and we aren't professional presenters on this. We are the parenting educators out in the field, just like you, working on it. I would keep my hands off of the mouse. Do you want to move on? Do you want to say more about this slide?
I'm ready for the next one.
Okay, I want to say one more thing, and that is, I didn't say at the beginning, if people have questions, we will answer questions at the end. Along the way, feel free to type questions into the chat box, and we'll watch that and try to make sure we answer your questions before we finish this morning. One of the things, I want to say one more thing about this slide, and that the parenting education is not usually a single field of study. One of the reasons why NYSPEP and NPEN have been working on these competency lists and processes is because people come to parenting education from so many different fields, psychology and social work and medicine and community development and from faith-based organizations. And in each of those, there's special strengths and there's training or competencies that you might not get training in there. And so to identify the broad and deep list of competencies, we have to look across a number of fields. And that's why this work has been done. Okay, so there they are, the competencies, Jackie.
Okay, so this list of competencies, it can seem a little overwhelming. There is more detail available on the NYSPEP.org website under the credentialing tab. So we've got the purpose of parenting education, human growth and development, talking about that social and emotional development of children and somewhat of parents themselves. That's something that's somewhat unique to the credential. Health and safety, communication, all of these things, when you put them together, create that mix of skills and competencies that a parent educator needs to have in their toolbox. So one useful way to use this list is to consider all of the areas and the depth and the breadth of what would be within those areas to help plan your Strong Roots events. That can help you identify your topics, your speakers, general themes. So thinking about what is it that the workers in your community need more of. And parent input can help to narrow that list as well. What are they saying they need more support with? So an example might be if you're seeing in your community a lot of difficulties with workers and parents partnering together. There's lots of miscommunication happening. People don't seem to be on the same page with the goals for the family, all that messiness that can come into play. You might want to focus your event around strength-based communication, or at least a portion of that, because that's the competency area that's going to help move forward in your community. So that's one example of a way to use the list for Strong Roots planning. So Judy, do you have any additional pieces on this one?
Yes. Well, and this will come up in applications too, but the one thing I would say is we do have an ethics statement that you will be asked to sign, and you will be asked to write about how you apply that in your work. And so in addition to the list of the competencies, there's also the ethics statement that you're asked to sign. And that's just to protect the families, to serve the families, like you said earlier, Jackie. This is also that the families and the employers get the best from the workers.
Absolutely. And that's another area when you're thinking about Strong Roots that we commonly see applicants have a little bit of struggle with around explaining ethics.
And related to Strong Roots, if you're interested in having a credentialed parenting educator or a representative from the credential work group present or help you put together pieces around any of these topics, we are available and willing to help. Okay, Jenny, process. Oops, see, I went to mute
Okay. So there are currently 3 credentialing levels that one can apply to. The first level, the Credential Parenting Resource Advocate, is a position for someone who interacts with families pretty regularly, but does not provide that educational piece. So when you're looking at your professional development for your staff, that CRA is more specific to your reception staff, your maintenance staff, your aides, and then that second level is where you would have your educators apply. So if they're providing direct education to families, then they would be at that tier 2 level. And then the third tier is really more about program implementation. So you've done that direct education, but even more than that, you've taken that experience and looked at best practice and brought it all together to improve programming and implementation and really replication of other educators. So if what you're doing is excellent and you can work with your staff to increase their excellence, then that tier 3 level may be where you want to direct your efforts. And we'll talk more about what that might look like. Next slide, Judy. So the credentialing fees are, they're laid out in front of you. So, but if you're multitasking and not looking at your computer screen, the tier 1, that again, that resource person is $150. The tier 2 is $300. Tier 3 is $300. And the other thing that we have implemented this year, previously your baseline was at tier 1 or 2, and you could not go past that second tier directly to tier 3, regardless of your education or experience. You had to complete that baseline of tier 2, which meant, completing that application process for one thing and then starting that next piece. And so we allowed for the continuity of that. So if you are looking at the qualifiers and thinking, well, I really see myself more as that tier 3 level, that credentialed senior parenting educator, you can jump directly to that. You will still have to complete all the competency requirements for tier 2, but there's not the same waiting and review period involved. So, for myself and for other people I've spoken to, that was a little bit of a barrier for people because they had their master's degree, they had X amount of years experience, and they really wanted to jump in to that high level, and they were not able to. And we're happy to say that we amended that. We heard what people had to say and thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. So we went ahead and allowed for that. So now, as you look through, you're able to streamline your own process a little more readily. Next slide. So the first thing you're going to do right out of the gate, you've got your applications at file. You're going to go to newyorkworksforchildren.org and you're going to register on the Aspire registry. And the Aspire registry is a web-based database for professionals in the field, specific to early childhood education. Parenting education has been added to this, and that's largely because of us. So when you go into the Aspire registry, you're going to have a little bit of work up front. Don't try to put that off to the end, because everything you do in the Aspire registry will inform your portfolio. So you'll need to go in and you're going to need to have whatever certificates, professional development documents you have handy to upload into that database. Now, speaking to that, some of you are going to say, I've changed jobs. I don't have access to that certificate anymore. I lost the certificate. If you have the training title, if you remember the date that it happened, still put that information in there. It's important to have a record of that on some level, and we'll speak more to that with the portfolio process. But go ahead and put it in there, even if you don't have the physical certificate. You really want to flesh out your professional development to date, especially looking at those competencies and what is best practice, what is evidence-based, especially now versus 10 years ago in some areas of competency. So go ahead and enter it. It's really okay. At the end of things with Aspire, by doing this, by registering here, all your information is located in one spot. So as long as you keep your information up to date, you can go in at any time and pull that record of your professional development. You won't always be in the position you're in right now. You may move on to something else. You may need that information to flesh out your resume or your application to a program or position. You can pull that off of the Aspire network. And in fact, that document of professional development is something that you'll pull off and submit as part of your application. So where before you were having to give everything to us, copies of everything, write it all down, now you're able to take all that professional development, put it in Aspire, pull out a comprehensive list, and use that to flesh out your documents before you turn them in. Next slide. This is the one I was talking about. This is the daunting one. It looks like a lot. It's actually more work for the people who are reviewing. So there are only a couple of these that really apply to you, the applicant. So the first thing that you would do is contact credential@nyspep.org and request an application. If you're not sure at what level to apply, what I typically will do is send all the files along with a copy of the orientation slides so that you can review them a little more in depth, ask any questions you need to, and make your decision. Once you've made your decision, you're going to start putting your portfolio together. You're going to also concurrently be registering on Aspire because, again, that's going to matter. Some of the things that we're asking can seem a little overwhelming, especially if you're someone who doesn't enjoy writing. There are a lot of written statements. And sometimes it's really hard to kind of figure out what you want to say, how you want to say it, make your experience fit that competency area. And so the other thing we implemented was having mentors available to you. So your peers across New York State are available. You would again contact the credential coordinator and just ask for a mentor. And we would assign somebody to work with you. And their role is really to coach you through, to mentor you through the application process, let you know if you're on the right track, suggest some resources, give some feedback so that your finished product meets the requirements, but also is meaningful to you. So the mentors are fantastic. I highly recommend them. One of them may be on this webinar. And she's very good with coaching. So reaching out for a mentor is it's an asset as far as completing this application. Once you have your application all together, everything comes in email. As much as possible, we don't want any documents snail mailed except the application and payments. Those are the only things that need to come to the PO box that's assigned to this. Everything else you're going to return in email format to that credential@nyspep.org. And you can turn it in piecemeal if you need to. I would prefer that you keep everything together. It makes it easier to pull out the information we need for the reviews. You are welcome to ask questions as you're putting your portfolio together. If you're having concerns about ethics versus professional boundaries, you can ask. I'm very happy to clarify. I'm very happy to direct you to one of the mentors. Anything that assists you in completing this process well. Once your application comes into us, then I pull out the pieces that need to be reviewed by the group, and I contact the larger body of peers and let them know, hey, I need 2 or 3 reviewers for this level. And once we have our group together, we get a date together to review. We do review using Zoom. So we're coming together from across the state. So the review process is not you email it to me on the 1st and by the 5th, you have a determination. That is almost certainly not going to happen, because we're pulling together people from all over the state who have varying schedules and things pulling at their time. But we do try to get it done as quickly as possible. In the meantime, between when we have reviewers assigned and the meeting, the reviewers are reading through the portfolio pieces and making notes and deciding what, if anything, needs to be revised, needs to be clarified, so that when we get together, we can streamline that process as well. And when we're together and we're reviewing, it is not unusual for us to ask for revisions. That's not because you have somehow failed as an applicant. That is because there are 4 or 5 educated, strong personalities at the table viewing your portfolio through their filter. So if something comes up and it's in question to the group, we don't try to figure out what you're saying. We come back and ask you to clarify what you're saying. We want it in your words. And so typically that's where a revision comes in. It's not anything that anybody should be upset about. It's really just making sure that we all are catching what you're trying to say, rather than projecting our own stuff onto your answer. So if we ask for revisions, you have a time frame in which to finish them. It's about 2 weeks. You send them back to us. We review them. The group gets together again, reviews those. If time is a concern, we may do it through email, depending on the quality of the revision. Once everything is put away, you'll get notification that you have been awarded the credential. And then we send that information to Prevent Child Abuse in New York, and they process your certificate. So your information then goes to Troy, New York, and that may be, we are a very small piece of a very big machine. So I tell people to allow 6 to 8 weeks from the time you receive the email saying that you were finally approved. It may come sooner, but we want to allow for the fact that the people involved wear a lot of hats. And so there may be a lag. That doesn't mean that you can't start using that credential information. You will be able to put those letters after your name. That's fine. The email letter supports that, but the actual certificate may still take time. We have a renewal process that takes place every 4 years. So if you are credentialed this year, then in 3 years, I start sending you emails, pleasant little emails, just a gentle reminder, we're coming up on 2024, and here's your renewal information, and we need it by this date. We're actually very generous with the time frame for renewal, understanding that because this field varies in how contracts and pay are run, if you need to do it by the end of the year rather than by your anniversary date, that's okay. But once it goes into the next year, then it becomes a concern. And if it continues to be lapsed after it's been addressed, then we can pull your name off of the registry of credentialed parenting educators. You can be reinstated, but you will have to contact us and go through the required processes to do that. At the point of renewal, you can also choose to apply for the next tier. And you don't have to wait 4 years to do that. So if you got through that second tier and a year later you're like, oh, I think I want to do that senior piece, that third level, you can do that anytime. It typically happens at the renewal because that's when people get that gentle reminder that it's up for renewal, and maybe they want to, it's 4 years later. Professionally, they've moved on. They may want to get that next level. Their position may allow for that next level. So whenever you wish to do that, you can do that. You just let us know, again, at the credential at NYSPEP.org. You let us know that you need that application filed. I missed a spot. I want to go back to it. There are letters of recommendation that are required. with that, they can be snail mailed or they can be emailed. It is okay to have that person just email it to me. And we do ask that you get letters from a parent with whom you have worked. Now, we have run into with some organizations where they see that as a potential breach of confidentiality to have that parent do that. That's fair. If that's how they define things, just let us know. We can work with you on that process, on identifying another situation that might work. The very cool thing about this portfolio process, and a huge question, is people read the requirements and then say, well, I only have my associates, but I've been working in the field 15 years. Well, first of all, it's not only, you have your associates. That's excellent. You've been in the field 15 years. You've acquired extensive knowledge. In addition, you're probably active in your community. So when we look at you as an applicant, it's not just you, the professional parent educator, it's you, the parent, it's you, the member of your community. So that includes those voluntary things that we do, the being active in your church, the being active in Kiwanis, any kind of coaching. All of those things come into play to really flesh out that application. So where you may see it as initially very narrow, it's actually very broad, and it makes it a little easier to navigate some of those situations, like the employer says it's a breach of confidentiality to ask for a letter from a parent. Okay, but I bet you've worked with a number of parents. So don't so narrowly define some of this stuff that you get frustrated. Send that email so that we can address that and figure out how to work through that. I think that was my last slide. Does this jump back to you, Jackie?
I want to say one more thing before we leave this slide, and I was able to unmute myself without moving the slides. But while Jenny spoke very clearly about us trying to make this as efficient as we can, we also, our goal is, if you've been working in the field and you go through the process of completing this detailed application, our goal really is to help you be successful and earn the credential. And so once you send in that application form and your fee, that's good for a year. Fine if we're all done within a month, but that's good for a year. So if the review committee were to say, you really don't have very much background in this area, they might help you find an online course, or they might ask you to write more because maybe you just didn't tell us all of the stuff you know. And so our goal is to work with you to document that and to build and strengthen your competencies. So it's really valuable experience to develop the portfolio, and most people find it very rewarding. While it is a lot of work, don't think about it as a test that you're going to pass or fail. We will do our very best to help you succeed and work with you over time. Another thing I was going to say about the writing, because a lot of people who are working in this field, well, a lot of people across the whole world, everybody, writing isn't what they're drawn to do. Some people love to write and that's their life. Other people are uncomfortable with it. In my experience in the past, and we won't necessarily have a mentor who has time to listen to you tell about all of your experience, but identifying a colleague or a friend, or in one program I know it was an active parent leader in the program where the applicant could talk about their work while somebody listened, and maybe even you tape it and then go back and draw from that for the writing. There are ways that your mentors can help you think about how to get it down on paper. All right. Yes, next slide is Jackie, I think. Did it go? It didn't go. There.
Using this credential to enhance your career path. And thinking about some of the questions that were coming in the chat, I want to be very clear that this is credentialing for workers who are supporting families. A volunteer may want to pursue a credential, probably at that lowest level. If they're teaching some parenting classes, maybe at the tier 2, but this is not something you're marketing to parents. It's a professional credential. So including in your credential designation in your email signature, you know, people look for on a nurse's name tag, are they an LPM? Are they an RN? What are they? A nurse's certified nursing assistant. Those things matter to people. And it matters in how people perceive you when, you know, if we all just say, I'm a parent educator, what goes in people's minds, what that means is a million different things. And for some people, that does mean that you have very little training or experience, and we want to be countering that message. So in your signature, mine says credentialed senior parenting educator. On your materials for parents and your website and any professional related activities, informing your supervisor and colleagues of the award and seeking out evaluation and responsibilities and compensation. So since there is not that formal degree path or licensure, this is the route to say I've reached a certain level of competency in the field and to be able to advocate for yourself. I also use this significantly in any grant application I use, and in marketing my programs directly to parents. That's one of the benefits for my program that I've seen has played out in sustainability, has been around when I'm asked by a funder or, you know, when people are making decisions about where money is going, what's the difference between your program and this program? I can say every one of my staff who are providing parenting education are credentialed parenting educations. And we keep and we support the renewal of their applications so that they are current in the field. And that does matter to people. Working with and leading others in the field, the more you become engaged in NYSPEP, the more opportunity there is to be involved in the numerous opportunities, whether it's becoming more involved in the credentialing process itself. There are a number of other committees, but it gives you that field of colleagues as you navigate the whole career path in working and serving families.
In watching in the chat, we wish we had monies to help people apply. We know that $300 is daunting. We don't at this time, and it's important that we bring in enough money to support the system that it takes for us to do this. I would, Stacy, seeing your comments, with the work you're doing in a number of different roles with families and parents, you may well have these competencies and be very appropriate for getting that. We don't have money to help you. I certainly would talk with Ulika about it. Ulika is a credentialed parenting educator and active on the NYSPEP steering committee, and talk with her about that. There are some people across the state who have been able to secure some assistance with the cost. There are some people who've worked with their church, with families, in a faith-based program where the church helped to pay part of it. So you might think about being creative about it, but we don't have scholarships. Also, back up a couple of questions. Like I said at the beginning, it is not a training program. It's a portfolio where you document your training. In the chat, Stacy shared some thoughts about where there's free training. There's some online training or if you Google Oregon Parenting Education, that's not literally their title, and I don't remember the title, but there's some online training there. You can look and find some really high quality training online. We encourage you to find the things that help you fill in your skills and competencies. We don't offer training. We are talking about, looking at your portfolio and validating that. Sandy, in your question about experiences you would choose, I think that that might be related to Jenny, and Jenny, maybe you want to talk more about it. But if you haven't had any specific training around some of the communication skills, and yet you in your parenting ed life, but you had training around communication or how to do outreach in communities and deal with people through some of your volunteer life, you can use wherever you got the training. And so Jenny was just cautioning you not to use the term professional as keeping it very, very narrow and not realizing that you get training and experience from lots of different places. Jackie, there's one more slide here, and I think it's, I have difficulty when I use my mouse both in the chat and it does different things in different places. There's the certificate. That's the certificate you will receive. And you also receive permission to use this logo with the gold on it in slides, PowerPoint slides, on a business card. You can use that logo when your credential is current, and you'll receive this certificate. Are there other questions or comments? Melody, do you see things I've missed in the chat?
No, I think we're pretty up to date. Jackie had the chance to go in and answer specific questions related to the credential.
So we have a few minutes. Do people have questions? Type them in. Jenny, why don't you just speak to these deadlines and say, okay, go back to, and there's not a slide on here that has your email. There it is. Okay, so let's go there. So this recording, I don't think is one we're going to save because I've messed up so much with the slides. But go, Jenny. Tell them how to get started at this point.
Okay, so if you are interested in applying or have a few more questions after this webinar, you can go ahead and email credential@nyspep.org with your questions or your requests. Again, I will send you the orientation slides as well as the application just so you can make your best decision with all the information we have available. If you send it today, I am not going to respond to you until Wednesday or Thursday. This is a part-time thing, and I am actually going to be going out of town. So do send it, but no, you will not get a response until more toward Thursday. As far as the deadlines, the first one coming up is October 31st, and then the one after that is January 31st, 2021. So the goal is that by that date, you would have your information emailed to me. And what typically happens is people email me the application components and then let me know that they've dropped payment in the mail. That's great. Once we receive payment and the physical paper application, then I start processing through. Now, the reality is I will start looking at your stuff, and if I think you're missing something, I will get a hold of you and say, hey, you may want to add a little more, or hey, we need a little more of this. So I try not to let it back up too much. There was something I was going to say, and it fell right out of my brain. Nope, it's gone. It's gone, Judy.
Okay, Jackie, thanks for answering that question. In case some of you out there are not watching in the chat box, the question about what letters of recommendation, we ask for one from a parent and one from a supervisor. Sometimes at some levels, you don't have a supervisor that understands parenting education very well, because parenting educators get spread pretty thin out there, and sometimes we're a one-person show. A colleague who functions at a supervisory level in their agency, who understands and knows your work, might substitute for a supervisor that doesn't really know much about what you're doing in your work. So those are general categories, and Jenny talked about a parent. A parent who's been in one of your programs is ideal. If that's difficult to arrange, another parent that you've worked with in other realms in your life is a possibility too.
One thing about the from parents, some of you are going to work with parents with varying levels of literacy and comfort with writing. There are templates included in the application that lay out an outline of a letter of recommendation, and you can actually work with the parent to fill that in, and they can sign off on it, and that's fine. That's a resource we identified early on as people possibly needing, as you ask parents who want to support you in the work you do, but may have a hard time getting some of that expression out.
So there's additional information at nyspep.org/professional/credentialing. If you go to the nyspep.org and click on the credentialing button at the top of the page, it'll take you to that page. Some of the pieces that are there are detailed lists, because in the competencies under each one of those titles we just showed you, there are a number of subheadings that detail what we mean by that. For example, in human development, we want information about your understanding about how kids grow, but also how parents grow and as they move into parenting and things like that, the adult development piece. So looking for those complete lists, but if you ask for an application packet from Jenny, those complete lists will be in the packet, and you will have it that way too. Feel free to reach out to Jenny at credential@nyspep.org, and like she said, this is a very part-time, very part-time job for her, so don't expect an email back in the hour like we get sometimes from people who are sitting at their desk in their offices and reply really quickly. Give her a few days so she can fit it into her busy week. But if you have questions, any issues, emailing with Jenny at that address is the best way to reach out to us and get assistance. And if you would like a mentor, that's the way to do that too. You share that with Jenny, and Jenny reaches out to other people who volunteer to serve as mentors. Thank you for spending time with us this morning. Thank you for your patience as I rolled forward and backward through the slides. And maybe that lets you know that perfection isn't our goal, but high service to families is our goal, and taking care of and supporting each other, because parenting ed is hard work. And the purpose of this is to really make sure that parenting educators are recognized for their work. Thank you all. Melody, you can stop the broadcast now, I think.